Imagine stepping into, like, a rural town on the northern tip of Okinawa, Japan.
Oh, it's supposed to be just gorgeous there.
Right. You're surrounded by these lush green hills and crystalline waters. But what really catches your attention isn't the scenery.
Yeah, it's a people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are immediately welcomed by these residents who are just laughing, joking, and moving with this incredible radiant energy. And practically everyone you meet is over 100 years old.
Which is just wild to think about.
It really is. In fact, this specific place, Ogini, actually holds the Guinness record for longevity. It is quite literally known as the Village of Longevity.
And what's fascinating is that when researchers Hector Garcia and Francesc Morales traveled there with, the recording equipment to study these centenarians, they realized something huge.
Yeah, what did they find?
Well, they found that this extraordinary lifespan wasn't the result of some expensive biohacking protocol or even a genetic anomaly. Right. The people of Ogimi rarely suffer from chronic illnesses, but their secret weapon is actually a deeply ingrained psychological framework.
A framework that guides them through this incredibly long, pleasant journey of life. Which brings us to the book we are diving into today, Ikigai, the Japanese secret to a long and happy life.
Yes.
Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to figure out how these centenarians are pulling this off.
We're going to unpack the biological, the psychological, and social mechanisms that allow the people of Okinawa to keep their engines running smoothly for over a century.
Okay, let's unpack this. And to start, we really have to look at the title of the book itself, Ikigai.
Right, so it's a word that doesn't really have a direct English equivalent. It roughly translates to the happiness of always being busy. Or, more profoundly, a reason for being.
A reason for being.
Yeah. It's basically the reason you get out of bed in the morning. And when we look at the research by Dan Buettner on the Blue Zone...
Those are the 5 regions in the world where people live the longest.
Yeah.
Like Sardinia, Loma Linda, and Okinawa.
Exactly. A major shared trait across all of them is this clear, undeniable sense of purpose. But in Japan, this concept goes so deep that it fundamentally alters their vocabulary.
How so?
Well, there's actually no word in Japanese that means retiring in the Western sense, like leaving the workforce permanently to just do nothing.
Wait, I have to push back on that right away.
Oh, go for it.
If someone is like an accountant working 80 hours a week or doing grueling manual labor in a factory, telling them to never retire sounds like an absolute nightmare.
Right. It sounds awful.
It sounds like a prison sentence, not a recipe for a 100-year lifespan.
Yeah.
How does the research reconcile that? I mean, how are they surviving without dropping dead from sheer exhaustion?
Yeah, that is a crucial distinction to make. The Okinawan concept of not retiring doesn't mean staying in a soul-crushing job until your heart gives out.
Okay, good.
It means never retiring from having a purpose. So if someone's primary career was physically taxing or unfulfilling, they might stop doing that specific labor to earn a paycheck.
But they don't just sit on the couch.
Exactly. They immediately pivot their energy into their Ikigai. They might become the head of a community garden, or dedicate themselves to a craft, or help raise the next generation.
So the key is that they never lose their destination.
Right. They simply remain active, doing something meaningful until their health no longer allows it.
It operates almost like a biological compass. I mean, if you look at the human body, it's designed for use.
Totally.
We are conditioned in the West to think the ultimate goal of life is to grind until you're 65 and then do absolutely nothing on a beach for the rest of your days.
Which is actually terrible for you.
Right. It's like thinking the goal of a car is to stay parked in the garage. But cars rust when they aren't driven. Our minds and bodies rust without a destination.
That's a great analogy.
If the brain doesn't have a complex problem to solve or a reason to wake up, it essentially sends a signal to the immune system that the mission is over, and the cellular machinery can just start shutting down.
Which brings us directly to how they actually fuel that cellular machinery. Because if you have a destination, you need the right fuel to get there.
Yeah, let's talk about the food.
In Okinawa, longevity is deeply tied to a foundational practice called hara hachibu.
Hara hachibu.
Yes, it's this ancient practice of eating only until your stomach is 80% full. The wisdom here advises against eating until you are completely stuffed. And modern science completely backs this up through the mechanics of caloric restriction.
Right, because digestion takes an enormous amount of physical energy. The sources point out that when you eat to 100% capacity, your body has to divert massive resources to these long, exhausting digestive processes.
And the byproduct of that massive digestive effort is the creation of free radicals.
Those unstable molecules.
Exactly. When our cells process food into energy, they release them. And over time, those free radicals damage our DNA and cause cellular oxidation.
It's essentially internal rusting.
Yes. So by stopping at 80%, the Okinawans are drastically reducing the amount of oxidative stress on their cells. They are literally starving the aging process.
It's like putting just enough wood in a fireplace to keep the room perfectly warm, rather than stuffing the hearth so full of logs that embers pop out and burn the rug.
I love that. But stopping at 80% is incredibly difficult in our modern food culture.
Oh, nearly impossible.
Yeah.
But the authors note a brilliant presentation trick the Japanese use to manage this.
The small plates.
Right, yes. They serve food on multiple small plates. If you sit down for a traditional meal there, you might get your dinner served on 5 separate tiny dishes arranged on a tray.
Which creates this visual illusion of abundance.
Exactly. Your brain looks at the table, processes the variety and the number of dishes, and signals satiety much earlier.
And that's a huge reason why Okinawans consume an average of only 1,800 to 1,900 calories a day.
Compared to the US average, which sits dangerously between 2,200 and 3,300 calories.
Yeah, it's a massive difference. And what they are putting on those 5 small plates is doing double duty.
Oh, the superfoods.
Right. They eat a diet rich in specific things like tofu, sweet potatoes, and fish. Plus, they drink sanpincha, which is a local green tea blend.
And there's that local citrus fruit too, shikuwasa, I think.
Yes, shikuwasa. It looks a bit like a lime. And all of these foods are absolutely packed with antioxidants, which actively hunt down and neutralize whatever free radicals the body actually does produce.
That's incredible.
But fuel is only one side of the physiological coin. The other is how you move that fuel through the system.
Right.
And this raises an important question about our modern obsession with intense exercise. Because you will not see centenarians in the blue zones running ultramarathons or doing high-intensity interval training.
Which seems totally counterintuitive to us.
Yeah.
I mean, we're told we need to be dripping sweat and out of breath to be healthy.
But intensive gym sessions trigger a profound stress response. They flood the body with cortisol and create micro tears in the muscle.
Which is fine in moderation, right?
Sure, but over a lifetime, chronic high-intensity strain can accelerate wear and tear. What the Okinawans practice instead is constant, gentle movement.
Like walking instead of driving.
Exactly, or tending to their vegetable gardens every single day.
There's also that famous Japanese morning warm-up routine mentioned in the text, Radio Taiso.
Oh yeah, the radio broadcasts.
Yeah, it's broadcast on the radio, and people of all ages participate, even residents in nursing homes doing it from their wheelchairs. It's just gentle, dynamic stretching, raising the arms, moving the joints.
And the biological mechanism behind why this gentle movement works so well is tied to the lymphatic system.
Oh, this is fascinating.
Yeah, unlike our circulatory system, which has the heart to pump blood, the lymphatic system,
Which flushes toxins and waste from our body.
right, it doesn't have a central pump. It
Yeah.
relies entirely on muscular contraction to move fluid around.
Wow.
So by gardening, walking, and doing radio taiso, the Okinawans are constantly, gently squeezing their lymphatic system, clearing out cellular waste without ever spiking their cortisol levels.
So what does this all mean? Well, for you listening, it means you don't need to sign up for a grueling marathon. You just need to stop sitting all day.
Just keep moving.
Right. We are treating the body like a water wheel in a steady stream, rather than a race car redlining on a track.
I like that.
And that idea of keeping cortisol low brings us to what might be the most powerful part of the Okinawan lifestyle. Because diet and gentle movement keep the physical engine running, but what protects the mind from the silent, invisible killer of chronic stress.
The social safety net.
Exactly. The sources dive into a concept called the moai.
The moai is essentially an informal group of people with common interests who look out for one another. It really functions as a chosen family.
How does it actually work?
Well, the members contribute a set monthly amount to a shared pool. They use this money to pay for dinners, games of shogi, or shared hobbies. But the critical function of the moai is that if someone in the group falls on hard times financially, they receive an advance from the group's savings.
The biological impact of that cannot be overstated. I mean, financial insecurity and social isolation are the ultimate modern predators.
They absolutely are.
They trigger our primal fight or flight response, keeping our bodies flooded with stress hormones 24 hours a day. By knowing that a group of lifelong friends literally has your back financially, the moai entirely eliminates that background hum of existential dread.
And from a longevity standpoint, eliminating that chronic stress protects your telomeres.
The protective caps at the ends of your DNA strands.
Yes, chronic stress literally frays those caps, causing cells to age and die faster. The MOI is a financial safety net that functions as a biological shield.
And that shield gives them the time to benefit from the advances in modern medicine. The sources use this fantastic analogy from futurist Ray Kurzweil to explain this.
The escape velocity of aging.
Yes. I want you, listening right now, to imagine a rabbit walking toward a sign that marks the age of your death. Every year you live, you step closer to that sign. But imagine the rabbit is actually carrying the sign and walking forward into the future.
Right, so the speed at which the rabbit moves forward represents our advances in technology and health knowledge.
Please.
Historically, for every year you lived, the rabbit might only move a few weeks forward. But Kurzweil's theory of escape velocity is the tipping point where science advances so fast that for every year you live, the rabbit moves forward by more than a year.
So if you can keep your cells healthy enough to reach that velocity, you theoretically never reach the sign.
It's a brilliant way to visualize longevity, but I want to challenge something the authors bring up next regarding keeping the brain young to reach that escape velocity.
Okay, what's that?
They quote neuroscientist Shlomo Bresnitz, who argues that we have to break our routines and do mental gymnastics to keep the brain youthful.
Wait, really? Every sleep scientist and habit expert tells us that routine is the holy grail of health. Our circadian rhythms rely on strict routine. Are the authors suggesting we just introduce chaos into our lives to keep our brains young?
Well, that's a very perceptive challenge. But it's important to distinguish between biological rhythm.
Which the body craves for sleep and digestion.
Right. Distinguish that from cognitive autopilot. The brain is an incredibly efficient, energy-saving machine. If you do the exact same tasks every day, the brain puts those tasks on autopilot, meaning it stops using active conscious processing.
Oh, I see.
Over time, the brain actually prunes the unused neural pathways. Bresnitz isn't suggesting you change your sleep schedule. He's saying you need cognitive novelty to force neurogenesis.
The creation of new neurons.
Exactly. Interacting with new people, learning a new game, or even just navigating a new route to the store forces the brain out of autopilot.
Which introduces a tiny amount of stress, because novelty requires effort.
Yes.
And that aligns perfectly with the research from Dr. Howard S. Friedman, highlighted in the text. He studied longevity over decades and completely flipped the script on how we view stress.
He really did.
Because the people who live the longest were not the ones sitting around living a completely stress-free, totally relaxed life.
No, they were the ones experiencing eustress.
Eustress?
Yeah, positive, healthy stress. It's the low-level tension that comes from facing a challenge, overcoming an obstacle, and putting your heart into your work.
So if chronic distress, like financial ruin, breaks the bone, eustress is the slight resistance training that builds the muscle.
Precisely.
But that healthy stress needs a focal point. Otherwise, it just diffuses into generalized anxiety. And the Okinawans channel this eustress into a state of hyperfocus.
Oh, you mean flow?
Exactly.
Right.
I know the book touches heavily on Palali Csikszentmihalyi's concept of flow, and most of us listening already know the drill there.
Multitasking is a myth. Task switching destroys productivity.
Right. And speaking of the multitasking myth, the sources bring up that fascinating Stanford study.
Oh, with the red and blue arrows?
Yes. People who multitask constantly are actually the least productive because their brains are trained to pay attention to every distraction.
The blue arrows.
Right, instead of focusing on the main goal, the red arrows. So we know we need to put our phones away to do deep work.
Yeah, that's pretty well known.
But what I found truly fascinating in the sources wasn't just the traditional definition of flow, but how the Okinawans apply it to incredibly mundane things. They practice microflow.
Microflow is the secret to finding Ikigai when you aren't, saving the world or creating a masterpiece. It's the ability to turn everyday chores into enjoyable challenges.
Like the Takumi.
Yes, the artisans. People like Jiro, the sushi master, who has dedicated 80 years to perfecting a single food. Or Hayao Miyazaki, the legendary animator.
I love that story about him. He announced his retirement and then showed up to the studio the very next Sunday to draw.
Because the act itself regulates his neurochemistry.
Meaning they get a biological reward from the process, not just the outcome.
Exactly. When you enter a state of flow, your brain releases a cascade of rewarding neurochemicals, primarily dopamine.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. You don't need to be a legendary animator to access this.
Not at all.
The text gives the example of Bill Gates. He makes a point to wash the dishes every single night.
Really? Bill Gates?
Yeah. He turns it into a micro-challenge, optimizing the order of the plates, feeling the temperature of the water, being entirely present.
Wow.
Or the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman. While waiting for a massive computer project to finish, he got bored and started painting the office walls.
And he enjoyed it.
He found genuine joy in the repetitive mechanics of the brushstrokes. By finding a rhythm in the mundane, you trick your brain's reward system into releasing dopamine for doing the laundry or sweeping the floor.
It turns a draining chore into a source of energy.
But of course, an Okinawan centenarian's life isn't just 100 years of washing dishes and painting walls. Over a century, you are guaranteed to face profound tragedy, loss of loved ones, and massive failures.
It's inevitable.
So how does their psychological framework handle the devastating times?
They rely on two ancient philosophical concepts, wabi-sabi and ichigo-ichi.
Okay, let's break those down.
Wabi-sabi is the practice of finding beauty in things that are imperfect, transient, and flawed. Instead of demanding a perfect, unblemished life, they appreciate the cracked teacup because its flaw makes it unique and real.
It teaches acceptance of the damage life causes.
Exactly. And then ichigo-ichi translates to the realization that this specific moment exists only right now and will never come again.
Which is the ultimate anchor. If you truly internalize that this moment is fleeting, you stop agonizing over the past because it's completely gone.
And you stop fearing the future because it hasn't arrived.
You just exist fully in the present. This feels deeply connected to the modern risk management concept the authors bring in from Nassim Nicholas Taleb.
Anti-fragility.
Yes. But I've always struggled with how anti-fragility actually looks in daily practice. Resilience makes sense. You take a punch, you stand back up. But how do you take a punch and actually get stronger without using some cliche superhero metaphor?
Well, a great way to visualize anti-fragility is through Wolff's Law in human biology.
Wolff's?
Yeah, when a weightlifter puts heavy stress on a bone, it causes microscopic fractures. But the body doesn't just heal the bone back to its original state.
Right.
It calcifies the bone to make it vastly denser and thicker than it was before the stress. The bone doesn't just bounce back, it requires the damage to become stronger.
Wow.
And to apply that biological principle to your lifestyle, the sources outline 3 practical steps.
Step 1 being create redundancies.
Yes. Don't rely on a single pillar for your identity or survival. If you have only one source of income, one close friend, or one hobby, you are incredibly fragile.
If that pillar breaks, the roof caves in.
Exactly. Create secondary income streams, cultivate a broad moai, and have multiple interests. If you lose your job, you aren't destroyed. You just pivot your energy to the secondary pillar while you rebuild.
Step 2 is the barbell strategy for risk. You bet conservatively in most areas, but take small, calculated risks in others. You don't bet your entire life savings on a wild startup. You put 90% somewhere incredibly safe and take tiny, aggressive bets with the remaining 10%.
Because if the risk fails, you hardly feel it. If it succeeds, the upside is massive.
And step 3.
Step 3 is perhaps the most actionable. Via negativa, or getting rid of the things that make you fragile.
Oh, subtraction.
Yes. We spend so much of our lives trying to add new, complex habits to improve ourselves. But anti-fragility is often about subtraction. Stop eating processed foods. Cut ties with toxic people who constantly drain your cortisol.
Pay off the bad debt that keeps you awake at night.
Exactly. If you simply remove the fragile elements from your life, your natural strength comes to the surface.
Which beautifully synthesizes everything we've talked about today. The authors summarize their findings into a list of 10 rules for Ikigai.
And when you look closely at them, they aren't just bumper sticker slogans.
No, they're the natural behavioral outputs of the mechanisms we just explored.
Right.
They say to take it slow, which is just the physical manifestation of living in microflow. They say to surround yourself with good friends and give thanks.
Which is the moai at work, lowering your cortisol.
Exactly. They tell you to reconnect with nature, smile, get in shape, don't eat to 100% full, stay active, live in the moment, and follow your Ikigai.
And that leads to the ultimate takeaway from the people of Ogimi regarding discovering your own Ikigai.
Which is?
Don't overthink it. Finding your purpose isn't some stressful math problem you have to solve before you are allowed to start living.
That's a relief.
As the Okinawans demonstrate, just keep busy doing things you find meaningful, surrounded by people who support you. The meaning of your life will reveal itself in the doing.
I love that. And I want to leave you, listening right now, with a final thought to chew on.
Let's hear it.
In our hyper-optimized, goal-obsessed culture, we are constantly pressured to find our ultimate passion. We are sold this idea that we need a grand, world-changing mission to be fulfilled.
Which is exhausting.
It is. But what if your true Ikigai isn't some massive undertaking? What if it's just the quiet, simple microflow you experience when you're taking the time to properly brew your morning coffee, or watering your houseplants, or meticulously sweeping the front porch? What if you already have your Ikigai and you just haven't been paying attention? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.